So, hi, nice to see you here today in conference. I heard that unfortunately, I didn't heard your presentation, but I heard very good responses about it. So, and I heard that one of your topics was fifth generation industrial revolution. Sorry. Yes, and yes, what exactly it is? Because nowadays we are more talking about fourth industrial revolution.
Yes, well, that's the old one. That is like 2016 terminology, and that came out of Davos, in which all the world's digitization was conceived as another industrial revolution. But that is already a reality. We are a digital civilization, and what the scientists are working today is out of Earth business. So space is the fifth industrial revolution, and it's not longer just a scientific endeavor. It's not a political weapon like during the Cold War. It's really the ground where we're building technologies that are benefiting Earth. So for example, climate change was discovered because of satellites circumnavigating Earth. So we create value for Earth, and we create value for what we want to build in the galaxy, because fundamentally we are explorers. So that's the thesis of my work, of my book, and the mission that the European Space Agency and many other agencies working with it are trying to create, commercial projects, not just scientific missions.
How to turn it in reality?
Well, it's already a reality. The cislunar economy, meaning any business that we're putting between Earth and the Moon, is already telecoms. If we are able to watch the Olympics, it's because there are satellites sending signals. If we are able to have connectivity in boats in the sea, is because we have teleports connecting satellite signals to the internet, to fiber optic. If we are able to create new advances in medicine, agriculture, biomaterials, it's because of the experiments that we're doing in zero gravity aboard the ISS. We've been having labs around the Earth for 20 years. And space always created innovations, first for the space missions, but then sold the patents to the commercial companies that deployed all of these to all of us. So I think that people don't know much about all of the inventions that we currently enjoyed that have come from space. Like, multi-polarized glasses, Teflon, Brita, filters, all of that was created in space. And the emphasis now is to reach out to the entrepreneurial community, because the space programs have always had big commercial partners, aerospace companies, telecommunication companies, sensor, cabling companies. But now we want to tap into the entrepreneurs. And rather than, see them pursue unicorn dreams of building the next Spotify, we want them to help us build the progress of the space economy. And that is why we're here today, and that's one of the biggest intents right now.
What would be your advice? What to do to some very ambitious startup from Latvia to get in space tech?
Well, I'm going to give you an example that is very clear. Scotland traditionally had many types of businesses, shipping, some mining. And then the city of Glasgow realized that they had to tap the talent from the university students and not see them go away out of the country. And they looked at space and they said, telecommunications, satellites. And within a very short period of time, Glasgow is the city in the world where the most satellites, nano, are built outside of the US and China. It's got 300 startups that are working in new space. And thanks to one of them, who is a rocket company, but a small micro launcher, which is called Orbex, they finally got permission from the British government to create a port, a launch port out of Shetland, which is in the north of Scotland. It's going to be the first rocket port of Europe. And you see, it's a small country, it's a small city, but it started with an intent. And look what they have achieved. So Latvia has universities with incredible engineering power in terms of talent. And there are Latvian entrepreneurs that want to, see their talent ignited. And what we are here today is explaining, come to space. There's a lot to build in space, and we need your talent, and it's possible to do.
How much time it asks? So, for example, this example of Scotland.
Yeah.
How big time?
10 years.
10 years.
And super intensely 5 years. And cities in Europe that have been built around the aerospace industry. So, for example, in Spain, we have the Ariane group building rockets. Well, Seville now has 2 science parks full of new space startups. It's all about connecting into where the hubs of space are. The European Space Agency is based in Holland, in Norwich, but also the mission control is in Dartmouth in Germany. If you believe that there's going to be a solution that you're dreaming that can be used, for example, how to improve the life of astronauts on the ISS and on the moon village, anything about human habitats, how to create food, how to improve anything with sensors, space is the place. So you can come from any approach and bring value to the space industry.
What are the biggest challenges?
Funding. Funding is really challenging. Because the European venture capital community was not built for deep tech. It was built for who's going to build me the next Shopify. Very easy things. And deep tech requires scientific knowledge and transferability of that knowledge. Meaning, if you're a scientist and you create a new discovery, it needs to apply to a problem, solving a problem, which is what innovation is, solving problems. So I think that we need more funding from the European resources, from the European Union. I mean, Horizon 2020 funded many projects, but we need a bigger fund, simply because deep tech requires some years of development that the venture capital funding model cannot serve. The venture capital funding model is, in 18 months, show me results. That you cannot do that with deep tech. So we need to build deep tech with funding from governments and then move over to the private sector to actually scale them up, grow them up once they are proven, once it works and is tested and it really is a product, not a prototype. That's when the VC community can come. And that's the transition that, hoping that all the stakeholders will be able to do, which is part of my work. As a former entrepreneur, not just a scientist, I know the difficulties in raising money and what it is to create innovation and how much money you need to fund it. So that's part of my work, evangelize and help the stakeholders, make sense of the amounts.
What about the success rate of space startups? We are talking about a lot about success rate in normal startups. What about space startups? Is it lower or higher?
I haven't looked at the figures, but space currently, new space, meaning startups working in the space commercialization, there are about 10,000 startups around the world. Half of them are in the US, and then Europe obviously is the next big region, and the UK has about 600 of them. And the rate of success is higher because it comes from real science, not I have an idea for a social media. Yeah, it's real science. So the chances of success are much more increased. And many of these technologies are already part of some of the space missions. People are working optics sensors, telecoms, all of that signaling. So I think the rate of return is higher, but they're less known because most of them are funded by government programs rather than by famous venture capital firms.
Yes. What about gender ratio in space tech?
There are more women working in space than in startups because they're real scientists and because they don't need to raise money from the venture capital community, which is 99.9% men. So governments are much better givers of funding to women because, you know, the women arrive and they are scientific people and they just see a scientist in front of them. Whereas the venture capital community is a bit like a peer club, man to man. And it's also, you know, there's a myth in venture capital that comes from the US, like we invest in people. Well, yeah, it's true. If the people that bring you the technological innovation are not credible, you would never put money in that. But science is science. And that's why in the world of investing in science, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. This is a scientist sitting in front of you with all these degrees and all this know-how, and there is no misunderstanding. So there's many women leading space projects and sensors that I have met. I am an AI scientist, and there's a lot of women working in AI. So yeah, this is the myth, and this is why I'm really pleased to be here. And I just came out of a session. There is a panel, and there's 3 women there in very powerful positions. So it is a community that is more inclusive and diverse.
I'm so happy to hear it.
Me too.
So if you are a female with some scientific background, there is a big potential to go in space tech.
Definitely, because the space industry is like, who are you? What do you bring to the table? Does it work? Great. You know, it's very collaborative. It's not, oh, I like this project. It's the VC community, you have to wine and dine them, and like, you know, and that's why it makes huge mistakes when investing in people. I know that everybody likes to talk about unicorns, but recently in the US, there's been collapses of companies. WeWork, Uber, you know, the IPO has been a big mistake, you know, and why? Because people invested in the hero CEO, charismatic like Jesus Christ superstar, rather than is this something solid? What is this thing doing? Science brings a new perspective. Science is undeniable. So that's why, you know, the chances of success putting money into deep tech are much higher.
What are your fantasies and what do you want to see from the future?
I love European innovation because European DNA, in the sciences especially, is about empathy and collaboration. And the future society is a society that solves problems for everyone. If you look at all of the projects carried out at universities, for example, are like, how can we make life on Earth better? How can we improve climate change, the energy challenge, the green economy, sustainability, all of these things. And Europeans, by our very nature, out of the CERN and out of the European Space Program, were mandated be friendly to everyone, collaborate with all scientists in the world because we need to work united. And that is the brand that ESA has carved for more than 50 years, which has allowed us to take part and lead all of the missions that are currently going. We're the only space program that works with everybody, with China, with India, whereas NASA and Roscosmos is like, no, I can't work with you because we are, you know, against each other politically. We don't. So the European innovation is very imaginative, very collaborative, and because we are a market of nations, we bring inclusion, diversity, and this type of 21st century approaches to how life and progress should be built, which is where ethics. And that's why I'm here and not in the US, and that's where I will remain.
Excellent. I can't wait where it will lead us.
I think it's already leading us to huge progress and welfare, and we deserve it all.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.